In this lesson, we're going to create the tail wings of our VTOL. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to our top view by hitting T on the keyboard, and we need to create the tail wings here. So I'm going to use the shapes to do this, just to get started, and if we need to, we can always hit Alt-X on the main body so we can see our reference image, or you can just right-click and hide that selection. Okay, and we'll grab our line tool, and I'm just going to come in here and create one of these tail wings right here. Create its shape. There we go. And we'll close that spline. Let's hit P on our keyboard to go to perspective, and I need to be able to get geometry out of this. So a really quick way to get geometry for an object like this, I can go to my modifier list and then use the extrude modifier, and that will create geometry, and then it also allows me to create thickness as well. So this is a really quick way to create very basic primitives like this. Now you can get in and you can start to draw out some very complex sort of shapes and extrude those out this way as well. Okay, so you could even do this with something like text or something like that. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to create the overall shape here. So we're going to move it into place first off, and then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to convert this over to an editable poly. Now, one thing that I want to show you, I don't want to always convert things over to editable poly, because what that does is it collapses the extrude modifier and the line and turns this into just an editable piece of geometry, and there may be an instance where I need to change something about the shape in the line, and if I just right click and convert it to editable poly, I'm not able to get to that any longer. So I'm going to hit Control Z just to get my line and my extrude. Now if I need to be able to work with it as if it was an editable poly, I can actually use an edit poly modifier. So this is called non-destructive modeling. So I've started out with a line, I got my geometry using extrude, and I want to be able to modify that geometry using edit poly. But it gives me the freedom to go anywhere in my stack and change it however I need. So this is kind of like, if you're familiar with Maya, this is kind of like working with the history. Okay. Alright, so let's come in here and I'm going to grab the polygon right here on the front, and I'm going to hit F on my keyboard, and I'm just going to drag that down, and we need to shape this up a little bit, so I'm going to go into my perspective view, hitting P on the keyboard, and I'm going to rotate this polygon, and I'm going to make sure that I'm in my local coordinate system, and I'm going to rotate it about 35-40 degrees, just so that way we get a consistent thickness all the way through this. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and go to edge mode, select this top edge, and I'm going to constrain my movement to the edge. So let's grab our move tool and switch that to view, and I'm going to drag that straight down in the Z just to kind of give it a tapered look here. Alright, very good. If I want to make that a little bit thicker, I could do so. I'll need to turn off my constraints for this to work. So I'll turn that up there. And I think that might be a little bit too much there. I think that's pretty good there. Alright, great. So now that I have this, let's go ahead and add a turbo smooth modifier to it. Just to smooth it out, let's take our iterations up, isoline display, and then I can always show end result, and I can go down to editable poly, and let's go ahead and go to edge mode. Okay, so we're just working with modifiers here. This is a great workflow. So now that we have this, you'll notice it's not showing the cage. Well, we need to go to our edit poly mode and actually tell it to show the cage. So there we go, and we can go into our Swift Loop tool and create a couple of loops really quickly just to get our shape back. All right, that looks good. On this back side, I want that to be nice and square, but on the front side, I'm going to go ahead and leave it that nice curved look there. Okay, just to kind of change that up some. I'm going to go to Turbo Smooth. Let's turn off Edge Mode. And I'm going to bump my iterations up just to make that really, really smooth there. Alright, good. Alright, now let's go ahead and change its color to black. Apply that gray material if you want to. Now, if you don't necessarily like this material, remember you can always go to a different render mode, and you could use something like, render mode. You can use something like the clay. Okay, you can always do that, but remember, you won't be able to see your reference image there. So that's always something to be careful of. Let's go back to shaded view. All right, now we need to unhide the body of our object, and we can do that by right-clicking, and we can unhide all, or we can unhide by name. So if I unhide by name, you'll see that I have this line 002, which is my hull here. Okay, let's hit Alt-X to turn off that X-ray. And there we go. So we have our first tail there. Let's go to our top view. Let's make sure that that matches. Still looks good. Happy with its shape. And now what we need to do is we need to get this object here. So let's do the same thing. Let's create this line to get this shape. I'm going to hold Shift to constrain that to a horizontal position to make that nice and flat, and then we'll come up to here, and then we'll close our spline. Now notice with this one I'm a little bit inside of the tail, and that's okay. Alright, so now let's move this down into position. Let's apply that extrude modifier, and this is just to give you a little bit more experience with working with non-destructive modeling. And let's go ahead and pull that down. Let's go to our front view, and I just want to check the alignment on that. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this, and I'm going to rotate that 15 degrees. And let's apply an Edit Poly modifier. And there it is. Let's go to Polygon mode, select that polygon. Let's grab our Move tool. Let's check our local direction, and we'll just drag that straight down on the X. Okay, there we go. Nice little flap there that's going to work well with our object. Let's apply our Turbo Smooth to that. And again, we're going to have to bump up the iterations, Isoline Display, and then we also need to go back to Edit Poly, and we want to show our cage here. Let's go to Edge Mode there, Show Cage, and we'll use Swift Loop just to tighten up those details. Okay, and let's go ahead and just flatten out both sides here on this one. Alright, looking good. Just looking at some of these different details, I'm going to go ahead and cut right here across the top. And there we go. So we've created this portion of that back tail. Now we need to actually create this shape here. So I'm going to draw this out. Let's hide our body again. So let's hide selection. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of bump that up into position. I'm going to hide this too. And let's draw out this shape. So let's go to our line tool. And I'm going to draw this out. Okay. And we'll hit OK. So a nice, neat little shape there, nice and flat. Now remember, whenever you are creating this for geometry, we need to make sure that this is made up of quads. It was easy to do with this object here because it was already kind of a square shape, a rectangular shape, but now we have something that's a little more irregular. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that extrude modifier to this anyway, and you'll see that it will work. So there's no problems with this. It's just that it's not, the topology is not being taken care of here. So let's go ahead and take care of this. So we need to add the Edit Poly modifier again. Let's go to Vertex mode. I'm going to right click and cut and start creating some of these segments. So I'm going to cut from here to here. And we need to look for a couple of ways to create some topology. So I could cut from here to this point, and I think that'll be okay. So that creates a quad here, but this one is a 5-sided polygon, so you can count the edges or vertices. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is not going to work for us, so what I need to do is just go ahead and cut from this point to here. That creates a quad, and then I'm just going to cut all the way around just like that. So then cut to this point here. Right click to end your cut. There you go. So let's go ahead and get the rest of these really quickly. I'm going to show you a different way to create segments between vertices. Let's select these 2 points, and let's use connect. So if I just hit connect, it'll draw a line or a segment between those 2 vertices. Alright, so let's continue on. And connect. There we go. Alright, now one thing that I want to show you about connect that it will not do is it will not connect between 2 points if there is a segment in between the 2 vertices. So just to kind of show you a quick example, I'm going to cut from here to here and then to here. Okay. We're going to remove this, but I just want to show you really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and go to edge mode just to set this up, and I'm going to hit backspace to remove that edge as well as this one. Let's go to vertex mode and remove this vertex. Okay. If I come in and I select these 2 vertices, okay, you might think that it should go ahead and connect, but it won't, because it has a segment separating the 2, and it doesn't create new segments or new vertices. So what I need to do is I'm just going to hit Control Z until I get that vertex point back. If I select all 3 of these and hit connect, it will go ahead and create that segment. Alright, so there is a little bit of a limitation with that. Now I'm going to go to edge mode again. You can hit 2 on the keyboard to get there, and I'm just going to hit Control and backspace to remove the vertices and the edges. Alright, so here we have our tail wing here, and I want to just create a little bit of a different shape. So I'm going to grab this polygon, I'm going to move it over in the Y. Okay. And then I'm going to grab this point right here. Actually, I'm going to grab all of these right here. And let's move those over in their own local direction. Let's grab this one. Move that over. Okay. So that's looking good, liking the shape of that. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this polygon and rotate it. Let's go to local and let's just rotate it along the Z. So I get kind of this shape here. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to flatten out this polygon here. Alright, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and turn off polygon mode. Let's add a turbo smooth. Let's go to 2 on our iterations, isoline display. Let's go to editable poly, edge mode, and let's use swift loop really quickly. Let's make sure that we have that show cage on. Let's harden up some of these details, and around those creases, really want those to be nice and tight, so we need those segments around those creases to be pretty close. Okay, and then we need one on each side here, just like so. Alright, so now let's go ahead and unhide all, and here we have our tail wings here, and then we also have this little secondary wing, tail wing here. Let's go ahead and position this properly, and it looks like that might be off just a little bit, so we may have to do a little bit of work here trying to get these together. And I'm going to move this one back in the X direction. Put those up together. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm also going to rotate this local direction. Just kind of offset that. Okay, so let's go to our top view, and you can kind of see how that looks. Let's continue to rotate that into place. I'm hitting E to switch to my rotate tool, and then also W to switch to my move tool. Okay, so looking good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and lengthen this up just a little bit. I'm going to grab these vertices, and I'm just going to push those in some. Let's grab this guy and pull it out and up. Just trying to fit this into the wing. Let me rotate that back some. Just trying to get those to fit better. There we go, that looks good. Okay, so now we've finished up the tail wings for this, and now what we're ready to do is go ahead and start building the interior of our ship. All right, so I'll see you then.